And back to our top story now, those high-flying results from Virgin. I spoke to CEO John Borghetti after his analyst and media briefings today. John Borghetti, thanks for joining the business.
Hi, Tiki. Nice to see you.
As the A-Team's Hannibal said, I love it when a good plan comes together. But at Virgin, you're actually ahead of schedule on your Game Change programme, aren't you?
Yes, we are, and I'm very pleased about that. You know, we were expecting to see some of the benefits in the second half of the financial year, but it's particularly pleasing to see them come through in the front half, but even more so to see them coming through effectively from the beginning of the front half, you know, really from about July. Once we had changed our fare structure, we started seeing some good yield improvements, so it's particularly pleasing.
You had some help, of course, with the Qantas grounding. Now, I know you said that it was only a short period from a financial point of view, but it's interesting that it was also at that point that there was a dive in customer satisfaction at Qantas, and now Virgin is actually ahead of Qantas in customer satisfaction.
Well, it's an interesting point, because if you look at the Roy Morgan chart that I think was up on our board this morning, even if you project that differently and say, look, if there hadn't been a grounding and the satisfaction levels were maintained at the level they were previous to that, our satisfaction levels still would have hit the same spot or surpassed it. So I think it's really a credit to our staff, and you know, as I said at the presentation today, I think I'm the luckiest CEO in Australia. I've got the best staff that you could ask for, and they are the ones that did it, and I'm very proud of them.
Is this the first time you've had a profit higher than Qantas?
I've never really thought of it that way, but I suspect it is, yes. Yes. Looking forward to many more.
What about the second half of the year, the full year? Because that's the tougher half for you traditionally.
Yes, it is. And indeed, last year, of course, we were hit very heavily with a lot of the natural disasters. But even without them, you know, the second half is always weaker. And you might recall last year we lost about 110 million.
Key to this, of course, have been the yields in the corporate market for you, and you're well on your way to your 20% target market share. But how much of this result was also due to the management of those rising fuel costs?
Well, that's a very good question, because we have changed our fuel hedging policy significantly, and now we are locked in Australian dollars. And for the rest of this financial year, we have a large part of that locked in. In fact, 84% of our fuel is hedged, and we participate in the benefits of some of the movement. So I think the hedging policy that we've got in place now is as good as I've seen, and I'm very happy with it.
John, this restructure, you're nearly at the 49% foreign ownership threshold. Could I argue that if an international airline takes a big stake in Virgin Australia Holdings, the listed company, that it could actually influence the unlisted international company when it comes to bilateral rights, negotiations to fly internationally? Presumably that puts quite a lot of pressure on that independent board, doesn't it?
Well, I would argue they can't. And that is the whole reason why there is an independent board. And in fact, of the 5 board members, of which I'm one, 3 of them, one of which is the chairman, is independent. And if you look at the seriousness by which we view this, we have got very reputable professionals in those positions.
Now, Etihad's James Hogan was musing about taking a stake in Virgin the other day, and you've got an alliance with Etihad. Would you be open to that?
Well, it's not up to me to say whether we're open or not. We're certainly not in discussions with Etihad. And you know, the whole purpose of doing this, as we've said, is for 2 reasons. One is to comply with the ANA, the Air Navigation Act, which is very important if you're an airline. And the second part is to actually add shareholder value by opening the opportunity for foreign institutional investors to invest in a domestic business. And the other important thing is it makes us like just about every other stock on the Australian Stock Exchange. We shouldn't
Except
be
for
any
Qantas.
Different. Well, there's always one, isn't there? But I think, you know,
I'm sure they'll be looking at this with great interest.
Yeah, well, but I think it's very important that we are treated like everybody else, and I think that's a good thing.
The Labor Party seems to be in almost as much trouble as Air Australia. Do you care about our Labor government cannibalising itself, either from a domestic point of view or indeed how we're perceived internationally? Is this banana republic behaviour?
Tiki, you're not going to like my reply, but I have a policy that I don't comment on political matters, and I'm not going to on this occasion. The only thing I would say is that, you know, instability, no matter what it's in, whether it's in a business, whether it's in, you know, home or politics, is never good. but I really don't want to comment on it.
Oh, well, you're not alone on the uncertainty point of view from business. John Borghetti, I congratulate you on your results. Thank you very much for joining us.
Tiki, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
And just keep an eye on Virgin's frequent flyer programme Velocity, which is also growing quite fast.